Hello everyone. So someone asked for me to show the system working with skeletal meshes with runtime animation. So I've opened this up in Unreal Engine 5. And just to show you, I can press play and deform with my gun. But now this is just a static mesh sphere that has physics. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go into the content drawer here. I'm going to add a new feature content pack, and I'm going to add the third person template which has this nice character here. So I'm going to add this in. And then what we're going to do is that we're going to make the system work with this character. Now, skeletal meshes is a little bit more specific because skeletal meshes don't have complex collision as you can have in a static mesh. It only has the physics asset collision, and the collision needs to be really well set up for the system to work. So I'm going to show you how we can take a look at that. So I'm just going to grab the third person. Okay, I'm going to go into characters. It's probably easier this way. I'm going to go into meshes, and I'm going to drag my skeletal mesh character into over here. Let it just compile. There we go. And I'm just going to use this as a template. So I'm going to rotate it around, and I want to put a nice animation running over here. So I'm going to use animation asset, and I'm just going to choose, I guess I'm going to choose the idle here, or maybe the run. Yeah, the run is probably going to be better. So run forward. And if I press play, we can start character running over here. This one is probably a little bit too quick for us to see the effect, so let's use the idle. It's probably better. Yeah, let's use that one. Now to make this work, again, is the same thing as a static mesh. We're going to go into our deformable meshes folder, blueprints, and drag our deformable mesh component into our components tab. We're going to grab our mesh component tag, copy and paste it into our skeletal mesh component over here in the tags. So the tags are over here. So component tags, compile and sorry, not compile, paste. Let's save everything. And now we need to set up the material of the character, which is also pretty easy. Now you can see that it has two materials here. I think it's because the symbol is a specific material. Let's just use the only this one because it's all over the body. There you go. Oh, this is in an instance, so let's find our parent material right over here and open that up as well. Let's close the instance, and this is pretty easy. We're going to get mf underscore deformable meshes, and we're just gonna plug the world position offset into world position offset over here. And now for the color, I guess we can do a lerp like this, Alt L and click, use our deformation mask over here. For A, we connect the color, and then for B, I'm just going to Alt3 and click to get a simple linear color. And I'm just going to make it red. So whatever we deform, it paints red. And I'm just going to connect this into the base color. And that should be all good. So we can apply and save. And I think by default, it should work just fine. But it's going to depend on the UVs of this character. But before I do that, I want to go into my own example character over here. You can find it into the demo and blueprints folder because I want to make the deformation small in order for me to actually not to form the character too much. So I'm going to do something like 5. So it's going to be 10 centimeters across, and hardness I'm going to do something like 0.5. And if I press play, it's going to be in its idle position here. And if I press shoot, you can see I just made a giant hole in her face. And if I do this on the arm, now I can start to see a problem. It's because normally characters are symmetric, which means their UVs are also symmetric. So if I damage the arm, the other side of the arm is also going to get damaged. But you can see that this works just fine. And you can see I can basically put holes in our entire body. Probably the head is the best place to show this up. You can see I just completely deformed its face. Now, to fix the UV's problem here, what you need to do is that you need to UV this character yourself. I think if I open up the skeletal mesh over here, we can take a look at the UVs. I'm not sure. Probably not. Let me just take a look for a second. Okay, sorry guys, I was just checking where I could actually see the UVs on skeletal meshes, because on static meshes you can see it easily, but over here you can as well. So you can go into the character menu over here, go into advanced, and then over here you have UV visualizations, which it only has one. And you can see the problem on why the character is duplicating. You can see it has a bunch of overlapping UVs. Which means because my system uses the UVs to detect where the deformation appears on the mesh, if you paint, for example, over here, it's going to paint, for example, on the foot, and I don't know what the other part is. So for the system to not mirror itself, you actually need to UV map your character correctly. I guess that's not very common because characters normally don't get static baking. So the UVs normally don't matter if they are overlapping. But for the system to work, you do need that. So yeah, for you to get this working correctly, you probably need to um, set up your UVs correctly. Otherwise, for example, you can see this kind of stuff happening. But yeah, other than that, you can see that everything is working just fine. As well with skeletal meshes. Now, this character is not exactly moving, but you can see that the animation is still playing, and you can see that the displacement is moving exactly with the character and the bones. So yeah, that's everything for this video. I just wanted to show you that skeletal meshes do work and the kind of complications that you have. Oh yeah, let me show you the other thing, which is actually a problem with collision. So this system basically it's the line trace where the collision is. So with skeletal meshes, normally you don't really have the complex collision on as a static mesh has. It's going to use the physics body. So if I find this and open up the physics body, which is going to be, I think it's this. No, this is the animation. Um, I'm not sure where that is. Let me just double check that. Okay, so I just found the physics body over here. Let me double click that open. And you can see that the physics asset, it's normally very well modeled here, but for example, let's see over here in the harm, you can see that, for example, the collision over here is going sideways on the mesh. So if the line trace is here and tells the material to displace here, uh, the mesh is not going to show up anything if the radius of the deformation is too small, because it's too far away from the actual mesh. So you need to make sure that your characters that you want to deform, if they're skeletal meshes, they need to have really good rigid bodies. I guess this will be good enough for most cases, but if you want really um, you know um, tight deformation exactly where you want it to be, you need to make sure that this collision um, actually is more tight to the mesh. For example, over here you could see that it could be a problem. Um, but if, for example, I increase my radius to, I don't know, 20, because this is a really big radius, you could see that I probably could deform the entire character. There you go, you could see that his entire head disappears. And you can see that I can basically deform. Obviously, it's bugging out because the deformation is bigger than the actual body, which you can really do because it's starting to pull the polygons backwards outside the mesh. But you can see it actually works. But yeah, you need to make sure that the collision is tied to the actual mesh for this to work. And yeah, I think that's everything. Now, this system is pretty new, so I'm not sure if I'm going to encounter any problems in the future. I do want to update it with better shape deformation. So instead of always using a sphere, I want to have different shapes. I'm going to try to do that in the next update. But if you guys encounter any problems or anything, you can let me know and I'll try to fix them as quick as I can. But just keep in mind the limitations with skeletal meshes, which you really need to pay attention to the collision channel and the UVs. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.